Hi, Constantina. Wendy is here. Moderator's here. Hi, honey. Sapphire is here. Tacoma. Hey, Tacoma. Heidi's here. Yay. Trump girl. That's cute. I like that. Hey, Heidi. Okay. I think most of the tribe's here. Stephanie's here. Yay. I love it. I love it. Okay, so I don't know how long my voice is actually going to hold out. I've been in clinic all day long, and so it's on the edge, I can say. I think I'm getting better, but still some drainage and stuff. But I'm here, and who would think that anybody other than a nerd like me could come up with a whole talk on nothing but cholesterol? Like, how much could you possibly say about cholesterol? Well, a lot. There's a lot to it, absolutely a lot to it. So, everything tonight, we're going to talk all things cholesterol. We were talking liver last night, and I think I revealed a whole bunch of new stuff about liver. So, we're going to talk about cholesterol, the risk of heart disease, and how that plays into hormones and menopause. And I may only make it about 30 minutes tonight. That's my goal because it's like so scratchy. And I know this is painful for you guys to listen to. So, and I was also going to say just a little housekeeping. I think what I'm going to do is it just takes such a tremendous amount of time to prep for these things that when I'm in clinic all day, I feel like I'm cheating you guys and me both a little bit by rushing to, thank you, Tacoma, by rushing to put this information together because there's so much and I want to make sure that I arrange it for you perfectly. Thank you, honey. And so I think what I'm going to start doing is doing Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday nights for these. And that way I can really give you my all. So I think it's been about 2 months that I've been doing every night at 7. And it kind of keeps me from being able to have date night with my wonderful fiance. Hello, honey. He's my moderator. And it also kind of keeps me from being able to kind of chill on the weekends, which is really good to have some downtime a little bit. Thank you, Heidi. So put it on your calendars Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that gives you guys a little break too, because I know that you are so faithful. You are my tribe. You're here like every single night. I love it. So that just, it warms my soul. And, we might do more often sometimes, or I might pop in on the weekend and just surprise you. So you guys can look for my little invites and stuff as well. And those of you that are in our membership program, we're going to do those lives, and then you guys can actually come on the Zoom and we hang out together. So that'll be super fun, and I can actually see you guys. So don't forget, push the little push on the screen a little bit, and it sends the hearts out. And it's not so much, I know you guys love me, and not so much for me, but it sends the algorithm out to invite people. And please invite your friends. And if you're inviting your friends to these lives, tell them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I will be here tomorrow night and Friday night. And then I'll take a break this weekend, and then we'll just start Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week. So if anybody's not here tonight and they were expecting me tomorrow night, I'll be here. So anyway, and my link in bio is where you can go order a hormone kit. So if you've had trouble getting your doctor to order labs for your hormones, you can absolutely do that. And you go to my link in bio or hormonebliss.com and you can order a test kit, and then it's free shipping, and then free shipping to the lab. And then one of our hormone coaches will get on the phone with you and devise a plan to get on some bioidentical hormones. So, okay, so I'm going to jump into all things cholesterol. And of course, all roads lead back to menopause and why it is so important that you guys have all the information about what happens after menopause and why our cholesterol goes up. And why did they check our cholesterol? And you know me, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat now, and I'm going to say it's so interesting to me that menopause actually causes your cholesterol to go up. And isn't it convenient that that's when they start checking it? And isn't it convenient that there are over 100 million prescriptions written for cholesterol blocking or lowering medications like statins? 100 million a year in the US. And there are only 333 million people in the US. So that is almost a third of Americans have a prescription for a statin. Now, whether they're taking it or not, I don't know, but they have it. So I'll just tell you a quick story and then we'll jump in. But when I was in residency, this was many, many, many years ago. Hi, Carol. Many, many, many years ago. I'll never forget. I was a broke resident, like all residents are. We're basically working for free. And they would invite us to go to these really nice restaurants. And I mean, I'm talking like Ruth Chris. I don't know if you guys have like a Ruth Chris where you are, but it's very expensive. Sometimes like 4-star, 5-star places. And so they would pay these doctors sometimes 6 figures a year besides their day job to go around and give these talks for these pharmaceutical companies. And so one night I just picked the nice steak restaurant and I go and I'm just a, first year resident out of med school. And I'm thinking, okay, free steak dinner, great. And I'm listening to the presentation and the guy seemed really smart and he seemed to present very well. And I was thinking, okay, this is great. I'm a nerd. I love this information. And then he says the magic word that strikes fear in the heart of every doctor, which then strikes fear in the heart of every patient. Hey, Elaine, I'm feeling a little better. Thanks for asking. I don't sound any better. In fact, I think I sound like I'm getting worse. But the thing that strikes fear in everybody is, let's just cut to the chase. We're not afraid of cholesterol. We're afraid of dying of a heart attack or stroke, right? We could give a rat's butt about a rat's butt. I don't even know where that came from. We could really care less about what our cholesterol is. We don't want to have a heart attack or stroke, right? So this doctor is saying, thank you, Connie. So this doctor is saying that if you don't put he gives some nerdy science, right? And then he says, if you don't have your patients on whatever the statin is of the day that he was promoting, and your patient has a heart attack or stroke, they can sue you for every dime you'll ever make in perpetuity. Like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. He actually said that. And it scared me so bad because I'm like, I haven't even made any money as a doctor yet. I'm like, this is terrifying. So I go back to my residency program the next day and A1C. So Gary wanted to know what his A1C should be. So Gary, A1C is a 3-month sugar test, and that kind of plays into some of the cholesterol stuff I'm going to talk about. But an A1C should usually be less than 5. So I don't know where you're at now, but this will kind of play into, this is mostly about women in menopause, but absolutely, Gary, this whole cholesterol conversation is very important because for diabetics, everybody's scared of heart attacks and strokes, right? 7 is a little bit high for a diabetic, just because it shows a little less control. Certainly anything over 7 is scary, but okay. So this doctor is saying, you got to get your patients on these statins. And so I go back to my residency program the next day and I told my nurse, I'm like, please, let's start going through charts. Everybody who's got a high cholesterol, because that's what they taught us to do, right? It's just check cholesterol on everybody that's over the age of 40. And so I'm like, let's just start throwing them on cholesterol medicine. I didn't say it like, throwing them on, but I'm like, they got to get on it. They got to get on it. And I was just like fraught with fear. And so I love my patients and I would never want them to have a heart attack or stroke. Right, Elaine? I would never want them to have a heart attack or stroke. It's terrifying. My father had a heart attack at 55 and I'm 55. I'll just say that right now. So I'm nervous, of course. And so it was not until years later that someone told me, or I might have read it somewhere, that cholesterol is actually a hormone. And that set off the ding, ding, ding. I mean, it was like, stop the presses. What did you just say? Cholesterol is a hormone? And I'm like, okay. So it made me rethink everything because I thought cholesterol was just a fatty globule in a blood vessel ready to kill you. And it's bad. And that's what doctors do. I have patients tell me all the time that before they came to me, that their primary care check their cholesterol because that's pretty much all they do, right? You can't get them to check your hormones, but they'll check, your blood count, your blood sugar, and maybe a thyroid if you beg them, just a TSH. And then they'll check a lipid panel. Like they don't bat an eye at checking a lipid panel or cholesterol panel. And like I've had patients tell me that the doctor has actually, or the nurse has actually called like the next day and said, your cholesterol's high. He's called in a statin for you, a cholesterol medication for you. And it's like, they don't even get any informed consent. They don't know about the side effects. They don't know anything. They just know they don't want to have a heart attack or stroke. And these nurses are just the little parrots saying, you got to get on this. And then if you go back to the doctor and you say, I was nervous about that because I heard this crazy blonde on TikTok saying that could be dangerous for me. And what are the side effects? And what am I really trying to treat? And you go back, what are they going to put in your chart? Non-compliance. And they don't want to talk to you about it because the minute you say, and I tell patients this, I'm like, go to your doctor and ask them if they're trying to put you on a statin. Did you know that cholesterol is actually a hormone? And if they look at you like a deer in the headlights, or they don't even know what you're talking about, it's time to find another doctor. It's time to run because that's really scary. And I'll admit, I was that doctor at one point because, that was 25 years ago, but I was that doctor. I was just a scared little resident. And I'm like, okay, I don't know anything. And if they are stuck in the big pharma loop, then they're always going to be thinking that way until they get a pattern interrupt, like I did when I realized that cholesterol is actually a hormone. Okay, so the things I'm going to share with you, I'm going to go to the board, is cholesterol and menopause. So this can apply to issues like estrogen dominance. I even have women in their 30s who have been told by doctors to take statins, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm going to explain to you why that is in just a minute. But lots of hormone imbalances can cause lipid changes. And so that's what I really want to impart to you tonight. Okay, so why do we care about cholesterol? I'm going to talk about what is cholesterol. I'm going to talk about why does menopause cause cholesterol changes? What are treatments to reduce cardiovascular risk? Because that's all we care about. Again, we don't care about what our cholesterol levels are. We don't want to have a heart attack or stroke, right? How do diet, lifestyle, and supplements help? Nobody ever wants to hear about diet, lifestyle, and supplements, but I'm telling you, I take tons of supplements. And in fact, I always say my son teases me, Mom, why do you take so many supplements? And I'm like, baby, it's a handful of supplements or a handful of pharmaceuticals. And I prefer this because this is actually going to make me healthier and live longer. So that's where that is. Okay. And what you need to know about liver. And I think I did get the liver live replay from last night. If you guys watched that, I told you about 30 things that the liver does. I mean, it's like just endless liver. I mean, it's just such an important organ. And your liver makes most of your cholesterol that is in your body. Your liver produces it. So that's where this kind of plays in tonight. And that's where the statins or cholesterol lowering agents work, is in your liver to block the cholesterol production. Oh, thank you, Elaine. Yeah, the liver is fascinating, isn't it? Okay. And then we're going to talk about what role does genetics play, and what role does thyroid play, and what role does estrogen play, of course, right? Okay, so I'm going to jump into, just like we did with liver last night, I'm going to talk about all the things that cholesterol does. Okay, it's an amazing molecule. It has so much important function. So here's what cholesterol does. It's actually a building block of all of your cells. Every cell in your body has something called a cell membrane. So if I draw a cell, and this is the DNA down in there and the mitochondria and all the things in there, there's a membrane around your cell that protects it, that only lets the things in that's supposed to get in, and it doesn't let the things float out like your mitochondria that's supposed to stay in. And that is cholesterol. That is a lipid membrane. It also is a barrier against damage. So, oxidative stress and things like that, it actually protects every single cell in your body, every cell, not just one cell, not just a certain type of cell, every single cell. Okay, it's a prohormone. So, it is a hormone and it makes cholesterol, that's the word sterol or steroid. And you've heard of getting a cortisone shot before. Cortisol is actually a steroid hormone, and this steroid makes progesterone, your androgens like DHEA and testosterone, and your estrogens. And I always say there's different kinds of estrogens. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly. God doesn't make an ugly estrogen, but it can be a bit of a problematic estrogen. So we absolutely want that balance. And it is also a prohormone for something called aldosterone that comes from your adrenal glands that regulates your blood pressure. So, can you see that if you blocked your cholesterol, not only would you not have your male and female hormones, but you also wouldn't have enough cortisol. And cortisol is your body's anti inflammatory. It's like a cortisone shot, right? When you have inflammation, you get a cortisone shot. So, you're going to have more inflammation and you're going to have higher blood pressure, which is crazy because if they block your cholesterol and now you can't make aldosterone and now your blood pressure goes up, what can they do next? They can stick you on a blood pressure medicine, right? And so that's how the polypharmacy slowly starts slipping in on you. That was like a tongue twister. Slowly starts slipping in on you. And so now we have problems with our blood pressure. Now we don't have our estrogen. I'm going to talk about estrogen a little bit and how estrogen actually affects your cardiovascular risk. Cholesterol actually makes vitamin D, and vitamin D affects your immune cell function. It affects your mood. Like when you get sad in the wintertime, they call it that seasonal affective disorder. That's from having low vitamin D because you don't have the sun to convert vitamin D in your skin. Vitamin D affects your serotonin levels, which are your happy antidepressant hormones, basically, or chemicals. And vitamin D helps your immune system so that you don't get sick. And I think I might have actually dropped off on taking my vitamin D or something because I don't normally get sick. So I guess maybe when I filled my supplement pack last week, maybe I got shorted myself. Not good. Okay, cholesterol also makes bile acids, and bile acids are the stuff that, so your liver makes most of your cholesterol. Your cholesterol makes like 70 to 80%. Thanks, Ellen, of your cholesterol. So it's not dietary, it's not what you're eating, it's your liver's job to make cholesterol because you need it for all these things, right? And so the bile that your liver makes or takes cholesterol, makes bile, is like Dawn soap. We talked about that last night from the liver. It stores it in the gallbladder. And it's like if you've ever tried to wash a lasagna pan without Dawn soap, it's almost impossible because it's so greasy, right? So you need those bile salts to break down your fats. And those bile salts actually help to absorb your vitamins like A, D, E, and K, your fat soluble vitamins. So bile salts are very, very, very important. And it's interesting because one of the things we do in this country, besides take women's uteruses out without just even giving it a second thought, is we take gallbladders out. Gallbladders are not spare parts. God does not make spare parts. The gallbladder is meant to store that bile, and that bile is actually what helps you store your vitamins A, D, E, and K. We know the functions of vitamin D. Vitamin K helps with clotting in our blood. Vitamin A helps with our eyes. I mean, they all have such important functions. And if you can't absorb them into your system, then you're going to have all sorts of problems. So it's just crazy that the first thing we do is just take the gallbladder out. And I'm not saying if you have gallstones and you're at risk of like having a bowel perforation or something because your gallstones, don't say, that doctor on TikTok said I shouldn't have my gallbladder out. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that the gallbladder has a function and there are options and there are gallbladder cleanses and all sorts of things. So that's a little beyond the scope here, but so we absolutely need to make that bile. Cholesterol can act like Teflon in our arteries. So this is like a cross section of artery. Teflon, it can actually help like when you cook in a pan so that the food doesn't stick to the pan. Cholesterol's grease, right? So it just kind of helps things flow through. Now I'm going to talk about the breakdown products of the LDL and the HDL and all that. So I'm not saying that cholesterol can't cause a problem because too much or too little of anything can be a bad thing. So it's all about balance, right? Cholesterol actually helps with nerve cell in the myelin sheath. So this is the brain, and this is a nerve that runs down all the way through the spine. And there's these little things that look like what do they call those pool noodles? Like when you're swimming and like you have the noodle that you hang on to. So it's like little pool noodles cut up, and that is made out of cholesterol. So it's like your cholesterol is a pool noodle, right? And so what happens is the nerve conduction through the electrolytes, the sodium channels, and all that, the nerves travel down kind of like on your wire outside your house, how the electricity runs through the wire, the nerve conduction happens and it jumps from pool noodle to pool noodle. And that's what your cholesterol does there. Your cholesterol also works at something called the synapse, where the acetylcholine receptors are in the nerves in your brain. So for cognition, they say somebody's not firing on all cylinders. They're talking about the synapses that actually have the currents that jump from one nerve to the other nerve inside nerve cells. So it's very important for that. And one of the number one side effects, besides muscle aches and pains from the statins or the cholesterol blockers, is cognition changes and memory changes. And I actually experienced that with a dear family friend who lost his mind and tried to actually strangle my mom. He was a college professor, and the only thing that had changed was that he had started a statin 2 weeks prior. So I've lived that firsthand. I've seen my patients with the muscle aches and with the liver enzyme elevations, clearly because it works in the liver, right? And doctors just like not even check, they'll check a level once and they put them on a cholesterol medicine and that's the end of the conversation. And it's like, why wouldn't you at least want to know your numbers? It's kind of like, why would you at least want to test your hormone levels? It's clown world. I haven't said clown world in a while, have I? But it is. Okay, so cholesterol supports brain repair and it prevents injuries of the brain cells. So remember I said the cholesterol is the lipid cellular protection on the cell, and specifically in the brain, it prevents something called oxidation and breakdown as well. Okay, it repairs damaged blood vessels, and cholesterol actually patches the blood vessels. And I'm going to show you the breakdown between HDL and LDL and how it does that in just a minute. It actually helps with fetal development in a baby's brain. So it's very, very important. And that's one reason why there are almost no studies that I can find for protective benefits from cardiovascular disease in women, menopausal women, because the studies were never done on women because the risk that they could still get pregnant, and the baby needs cholesterol to make its brain, and you can cause brain birth defects in a baby if you give a woman a statin. So that's why we really don't have any studies that show an increase or a decrease in morbidity or mortality in women. And there's not real great evidence in men, I'll tell you that. There's some small evidence in men over the age of 70 who have had a heart attack or stroke. Those are the patients that I'm like, your cardiologist can deal with that. And everybody else, I'm like, just run as far as you can, because now there are things that you need to know, and I'm going to share that in just a minute. There are things you need to know about your lipid panel, but statins ain't it. I'll just tell you that straight up. Okay. HDL is actually removes unwanted lipid particles from the bloodstream. So again, I'm going to do the breakdown in just a minute. But HDL is a part of the lipid panel that literally its job is to remove those, quote, bad particles, the LDL, out of your bloodstream. And so it's like, why are we going to try to block all of your cholesterol, your whole lipid panel, and sacrifice the one part of your lipid panel that's there to decrease your risk of cardiovascular disease and brain atherosclerosis and increasing your risk of all of those things? It makes zero sense. I mean, I'm not the smartest girl in the world, But like when you hear that, you're just kind of like, wait a minute, something's up here, right? Okay, HDL also bags like trash. It bags up the bad cholesterol and takes it back to the liver to get it to reprocess it as good cholesterol again. And LDL transports cholesterol into the cells. So even though people want to say L or lousy, LDL is bad, it's not. It transports the cholesterol molecules back into the cells. Okay, so I'm going to jump from here. And at this point, I'm going to pull my other board in. Okay. Sorry, I had to put my little button in your face again. I think I do that every night. Okay, so let's see. Let me straighten this up just a little bit, make sure we're there. Okay, cool. Hello. Okay, so this is what is called a lipid panel, and this is the thing that doctors normally check. And I'm going to move that forward so you guys can see just a little bit better there. Let's see. I'm going that way. Okay, cool. So you can see a little better. I know this writing's really small, and I don't expect you to see it. I'm more, like I always tell you guys, I do it more for me so that I can stay on track with stuff. Okay, so in the lipid panel, lipid just means fat. We have something called the total cholesterol. And this is a measurement of all the little particles, your HDL, your LDL, and your VDL. And so the magic number that they usually say for total cholesterol, oh, thank you, Elaine. Okay. The magic number is usually 200 or less. This is very interesting. Over the years, they have actually decreased the number from the total cholesterol. It used to be 350, then they lowered it to 300, then they lowered it to 250. And within the last 10 years, they have lowered it. I'll tell you, Connie, in just a second, video. They've lowered it to 200. Now, that seems a little suspicious, doesn't it, for somebody who would like to write 100 million prescriptions for a statin every year? Let's just move the target. Also, in light of the fact that they really haven't taken into account for the public all the functions of what cholesterol does. So, if that's the case, then why aren't we addressing what the lipid panel particles are actually doing and what they're for instead of just throwing people on statins? So, okay, so the LDL is what we call low density. And the magic number for that is usually less than 190. And if you look at the research, the stats show anywhere between 70 to 90% of all people who have heart attacks and strokes have normal LDLs. And LDL is the one that they want to say is the lousy, L for lousy. That's my little frowny face there. It's for lousy. And it's like LDL is actually the very molecule that makes your estrogen, that makes your testosterone, that makes your progesterone, that makes your vitamin D. I mean, it is like the most important one. And for us to call it lousy is like the stupidest thing I've ever said, ever. So now they have lowered the numbers. And if people with heart attacks and strokes have normal cholesterol levels, why the heck are we sticking them on statins? It makes absolutely no sense. And so the LDL and the VDL, this is very low and this is low. Now, low density means it's very small. So dense is something that's very hard, basically, and low means it's very small and very hard. Now, you can imagine if you have something, if you have a fatty particle that's just like a little ball, it makes me think of when we were kids, we'd take a loaf of bread and we'd like roll it into a ball. So like when it's fluffy, it's a piece of bread, but when you roll it down into a little ball, it can be like a little chunk hard particle. So again, everything's about balance. Too much, too little, or something that's been pushed out of balance. Liver enzymes and cholesterol has been a little high and I never been before. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that. I don't know if you're on a statin, but that'll make your liver enzymes go up for sure. And cholesterol is high when estrogen is low. So Sharon, if you're in the menopausal state, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And so if you have these like little bread balls, yeah, they can get stuck. But why do they get stuck in the artery? Because the artery has inflammation that makes it sticky. the artery has other inflammation that's going on. Yeah, red yeast rice is basically like he's wanting to know, talk about it. Red yeast rice is basically kind of a cousin to a statin. It works through the liver through the same CYP pathway. And I know that's nerdy science, but that same CYP pathway that helps lower inflammation through the liver. So if your enzymes are elevated, you can also have inflammation in the liver that's going on. Or if you're overweight, fatty liver, that can make your liver enzymes go up too. All this is connected. All of this lipid is fat stuff, right? Which you need, but it's all got to be in balance. So if you have inflammation in the arteries, now these very low density particles can get stuck there. The VLDL, these very low density particles, also carry something called triglycerides in them. And triglycerides, I'll skip down here. Triglycerides, tri means three, and glyceride is the sugar or the glycerol molecule. Vitamin B complex, ultra lipoprotein test. Yeah, it can actually improve it. He said, can vitamin B affect the lipoprotein? And I'm going to talk about a B vitamin called niacin in just a minute. So actually, let's talk about it now. Niacin is a B vitamin, actually, that lowers triglycerides because it blocks an enzyme that, okay, so this is a fatty acid molecule. So there's three fatty acids attached to a glycerol molecule, and niacin, the B vitamin niacin, actually blocks the enzyme that allows this to hook up and connect. Triglycerides are a great energy source. They're like a fatty acid, and your body preferentially wants to burn fatty acids over sugar. So triglycerides are a great source. But if you have diabetes or you have high blood sugar or insulin resistance, your body doesn't even really have the chance to burn fatty acids. You have so much sugar around that the little fat that you have, the little cholesterol that you have, is actually having to soak up that sugar and hold on to it till you need it. And you're never going to need it because you just keep having it come in and come in. And so the triglycerides can go up. There's a genetic component to all of these. And that's a little beyond the scope of what I'm going to talk about tonight. But if you have a genetic predisposition to having elevated triglycerides, and they go really high, you can have something called pancreatitis, which is where your pancreas swells, gets inflamed, and it can actually be life threatening. And so triglycerides are nothing to mess around with if they're very, very high. See, I saw that a lot in residency in the ICU. People end up in the ICU a lot with when they have really high triglycerides, like in the thousands. Triglycerides should be less than 70 to 150. And so it can be really, really dangerous. But that is because you have insulin resistance and too much sugar. So that's an issue for sure. And then again, niacin blocks that enzyme that makes those triglycerides. Okay, let's talk about HDL just a little bit. So HDL is what people call happy for HDL. And actually, HDL is like a cleanup crew, and you want the HDL as high as you can get it. Okay, so ways that you can increase your HDL are through omega 3s, MCT oil, coconut oil, anything that you can do to increase your healthy fats. So it's like, why are we telling you to block, your cholesterol? So actually what is happening when you take a statin is it's blocking an enzyme that allows you to produce cholesterol. So it really doesn't make any sense to block your cholesterol production when we need your cholesterol, but we're not looking at all the components that we can help. And so I know it's a lot of nerdy science, so I'm going to wrap it up in a big bow, I promise. But I want you to kind of see that there are different components that we are looking at. Okay, so the HDL is a cleanup crew. We want it more than 60, as high as possible. And the higher your HDL is, the more it will pick up these low densities, like the little bread balls I talked about, pick up those little low density ones and take them back to the liver and say, you know what, you're just all squished up like a little bread ball. We're gonna have to like reassemble you and make you into something that's a little bit more helpful. And then when you get reprocessed, you'll be fine. You'll go do some good stuff. So there's something that's called non-HDL. You might see that on your lipid panel. And basically what they're doing is taking your total cholesterol and then they're subtracting out your HDL and they're coming up with a measurement that tells you that you have a healthy balance. It's kind of like when we do the estrogen to progesterone for estrogen dominance ratio. We're looking to make sure your estrogen's not too high. We're looking to make sure your HDL, or your happy, healthy lipid uh, part of your panel, is actually in the protective state, and it's in a good place that it can carry all your little, I keep saying little bread balls, but like the little bread balls back to the liver. Then there's something called the coronary artery risk ratio, and this is a calculation of the total cholesterol to the HDL. So it's very similar. The non-HDL is usually the component of the coronary artery risk ratio, and that's what I do look at. And I always tell people, my patients when they come in, they're like, "Why didn't you check a cholesterol level?" I'm like, because I look at cholesterol very differently, and I'm not trying to stick you on a statin. I have kind of coined the phrase that most commercial doctors, when they check a blood, they check the lipid panel in a blood test, they're doing a statin deficiency test because they just want to stick you on a statin. But they're not really talking about all these components. And so to me, if we're doing your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, getting it balanced, I'm really not worried about all this. Although I do check those things because we do want to know the other things like your triglycerides and your risk ratios. And is our estrogen therapy working to get your healthy cholesterol back where it needs to be, and to make supplement recommendations to decrease your risk of heart attacks and strokes, because that's really all we care about. Okay, then there are some genetic tests that you can do, and talking about all the genetics of like MTHFR and methylation and cytochrome P pathways and stuff is a little bit past like what the scope of. And I was gonna go 30 minutes tonight, but if you guys are still with me, I'm gonna keep going because this is like so cool nerdy science. So I'll kind of take it through just a little bit more. So if you guys are doing okay with my creepy voice, then I'll keep going. Um, so genetics that you can do that are really easy to ask your doctor for is an ApoB, an ApoE, and a LipoA. And you guys can write those down if you want, if you have your pencil, and you can ask your primary care for that. You're going to have to do a little bit of nerdy research to kind of know that. Because even if you say, well, you check my genetics for the lipid panel, they might not know what it is. And ultimately, it's really not that important because in my mind, we treat it the same way. We got to get our HDL up with our healthy fats. We got to get our menopause, ovarian failure under control. And we got to do some of the things that are the lifestyle changes that are really important. So I want to get this in just a little bit. There are more important risk factors for cardiovascular disease than a cholesterol panel, which is a lipid panel, right? And that is an inflammation marker called CRP or an HSCRP. So if you have a family history and you're at really high risk of having a heart attack or stroke by your genetics, then you can ask for an inflammation marker. I have high LPA, endometrial cancer survivor. Okay, so Allison, if you have high LPA, that does put you at an increased risk, and all the more reason to talk about estradiol. And even though you are a cancer survivor, all the more reason that you should be on bioidentical hormones. So if you stay tight with me, I'm going to explain that here in just a little bit, okay? So homocysteine is an inflammatory marker. And again, I talked about that a little bit yesterday through the liver. So checking a homocysteine level is very important, and getting on a good methylated B series of vitamins. A hemoglobin A1C, we talked about that a minute ago, because if your diabetes is not well controlled, one of the main things that causes inflammation in your blood vessels is not cholesterol, it is sugar. And the only reason that those little LDL or VLDL particles stick to the walls of your blood vessels is number one, inflammation, because it's sticky and it's inflamed. And number two is sugar causes most of the inflammation. So if you have a high sugar diet or you have diabetes, that's what we check the A1C for, to see how good your blood sugar control is. The blood vessel is a setup for having problems in it. So here's a blood vessel, and then you have inflammation in the wall. So now you have these little bread balls, or the little VLDLs can stick there. Normally they're supposed to flow through. They're supposed to keep the cholesterol flowing so that it can go and do things like make your hormones and go make your blood, your brain connections and all the synapses and all your bile salts and all the things that it has to do. It has to go through the bloodstream to get there. We don't want it staying stuck in there. And then if the estrogen, I'm going to cut into estrogen just a second. Estrogen actually decreases the inflammation in the walls here. Now, if you go back and look at my uterus talk I did the other night, I talked about um, endometriosis and endometrial cancer and the inflammation of the lining, and all that is because of an excess of a renegade estrogen called estrone and estrogen dominance with estrone. So that is all the more reason to get your estrogen balance back with the good protective estrogens going through organic bioidentical hormones. But estradiol actually decreases the inflammation in these blood vessels so that things don't stick in there. And it actually increases the pliability so that the blood vessel can actually expand instead of constrict down and scar and that's when you get atherosclerosis. That's a mouthful. Because they can't expand. And so now you have high blood pressure because you have this little constricted tube, and then now it's going to get stuff stuck in it. And the calcium that's in your body, if you don't have estrogen to put the calcium into your bones, which is why you get osteoporosis after menopause, you don't have calcium and now you have broken bones, that calcium is going to deposit like lime deposits in here. And now you've just got a recipe for a blocked artery. When you block an artery, you don't get blood flow to the heart or to the brain or to the nerves or any other part of your body. And so that's why diabetics start getting amputations. They don't get blood flow to their foot, and now it turns into gangrene, and it causes you to not get blood flow to your heart, and you have a heart attack. So it's super, super important that we have the estrogen that actually keeps all of that flexible. So I could put a hormone panel on here for sure. And a fasting insulin, lipoprotein A, we talked about that. Uric acid. Uric acid is a measurement of sort of the health of your blood and the potential deposits of your proteins and the way they're working in your body. That's a whole nother conversation, but uric acid can be helpful. A BMI. I'm not real big into BMI, but I'm just saying if you're obese, your risk of heart disease goes up because now you have a lot more fat in your body, and that fat gets infiltrated into the liver. And I did the liver talk last night. Now your liver can't function properly to make the HDL or the good cholesterols. Smoking, of course, because that causes inflammation in the blood vessel, and of course, family history. So I know I'm running out of time here just a little bit, but I want to make sure that I get to one more screen. Okay, so you guys who know me and my tribe, you know I have to do this. Okay, so this is the time frame of 0 to 100 if you live to be 100, and this is the age of about 50 when most women go through menopause. And if you think about who gets high cholesterol, and this is hormones, this is estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all the sex steroid female hormones. And so if you think about who gets high cholesterol, is it girls from 0 to 50, or is it the women from 50 to 100? So there is no accident that they start checking your cholesterol or your lipid panels after the age of 50, because they're going to be high, because your body needs cholesterol to make progesterone and make estrogen. And so what happens when it goes low is your body will start upregulating its own natural production of cholesterol to make these hormones, because you don't have ovaries anymore. The ovaries aren't functioning anymore. And once you start to lose your estrogen, now you're going to start having problems with increasing your HDL. You're happy because your body is going to shunt everything and trying to make more estrogen for you, or progesterone or testosterone. And now it's not going to go towards your HDL molecules, and you need that HDL to carry the LDL out. So I'll actually, sorry, I just noticed what I did. So it'll actually increase your LDL molecules, which are those low density, or if you were following me for the last few minutes, those little, I was talking about like when we used to take white bread and we'd roll it up in a little ball when we were kids. And it's just like, it started fluffy and then it's just like a little lump. So the lipid particles actually kind of start fluffy and then they can go down to these little dense things that can get stuck in the arteries. And estrogen will actually help increase your HDL. So without it, you're actually going to have a lower HDL. Estrogen enhances your liver function. It helps with inflammation. Progesterone helps with inflammation. And the estrogen actually protects the blood vessels. So when we talk about what's happening after menopause, our ovaries literally have all the eggs they're ever going to have. And once they dry up, we run out of them. You don't have the egg cells anymore. So we call that, ovulation when you pop out an egg every month. But after menopause, we literally run out of eggs. At about the age of 30, we have half of our eggs. At about the age of 50, we have 0 eggs. Once that happens, we have basically no hormonal influence anymore. And it's fascinating to me that I've seen so many women who have had ultrasounds after menopause, 5 or 10 years out, that the radiologist will actually read the ultrasound and say the ovaries are non detectable. They are gone. I mean, just puff like smoke. And it's like, how do we ever think that we are going to have a healthy anything when we are flatlined till the grave? And during perimenopause, things are so crazy that now everything is out of balance and we're expected to live like that. And the easiest thing is to get bioidentical hormones and to balance out this curve so this isn't so crazy. And then we can use these hormones to kind of stay like that. And people ask me, well, how long are you going to be on bioidentical hormones? And I'm like, until we can regrow ovaries. That's the answer. Because I'm 55. My dad had a heart attack in his 50s, died of cancer. We have so much in my family history that there's no way that I want to live flatlined with all the disease risk that I have. And the thought of having a heart attack or a stroke is absolutely terrifying. And I'm very productive. I have a son. He's 20. I want to see him grown. I don't want to have a stroke and be gorged out. And so it's so important to me that before I leave this planet, that I've got at least 50% of the women after menopause who understand the importance of getting their hormone balance back and decreasing the risk. And so there are so many pieces to that about decreasing your risk as well. Okay, and I don't know if I really talked, I know I have a few minutes. I told you guys I was going to try to close it up early tonight, but where was my board that let's see. Oh, okay, hang on. I did a talk the other night on brain fog, and I think I've still got quite a bit of brain fog still. So I wanted to cover here. So treatments, okay. So we talked about the statins, and I am not a fan. There is a medication called the fibrates. The fibrates are basically kind of like fiber, and in the gut, when you eat things that have higher levels of fatty acids in it, it actually binds it up and like sends it out of your gut before it gets absorbed. Oh, good. I'm glad, Christina. And so, really, if your body's making 70 to 90% of your cholesterol, like blocking it's not so important, but it can reduce some of the things like when we're eating. So, all of us eat junk fat. And so, if we're eating those fats like on greasy burgers and stuff, then the fibrates are having fiber. I mean, you could just take benefiber or, Metamucil or something like that, or increase the fiber in your diet. But that is one way to do it. Omega 3s and MCT oil. There are actually prescription forms of this, and there's prescription forms of the fibrates. So these are more the RX, the prescription treatments that you can do. And before you would ever take a statin, I would always ask you to ask your doctor if they're going to start begging you to take a statin. Say, can you put me on a fibrate, or can you put me on a prescription fish oil or something like that first? Let me go watch the replay. I came on here late. Yes, Dolores. Yes, I'll try to repost it tonight. But Dolores, if you go to my Facebook page, Dr. Tammy, or my Instagram page, it's streaming live, and so it's like on constant replay. You can go back and watch it, so no problem there. Okay, supplements. Methylfolate. There's a genetic component, and so methylfolate actually works like methyl groups to clear toxins. If your liver doesn't have to work as hard, it's going to make more of your healthy fats for you, your healthy cholesterol. Red yeast rice has lowered my cholesterol. Yeah. So red yeast rice works through something called the cytochrome pathway or the CYP pathway. That is the pathway that metabolizes your medications. And so red rice yeast can actually help lower those VLDLs and those LDLs. Remember, I said like the little bread balls. It actually helps process where the HDL is like those molecules when they're all clumped together, which can then be sticky, and it can actually help the enzymes that make that. And the liver makes those enzymes too. So the liver's doing all this work and making these enzymes that are making these other things do stuff. Okay, if you haven't heard anything else tonight, if you are on a statin and you really feel like the statin is the way to go, and even though what I've said, you're still thinking, my doctor wants me on it, I don't want to argue with my doctor, there is something you absolutely, are you listening? Absolutely have to have, and it's called CoQ10. And I highly recommend CoQ10 anyway. But if you are, yeah, yes, CoQ10. Yeah, that's great. You said that for me. Thank you. Um, Absolutely have to have it because it's going to help that cytochrome pathway to clear the process in which those statins are decreasing your cholesterol, because it's also causing oxidative stress and damage to your liver. That's why the liver enzymes go up when your body can't tolerate it. And everybody has different genetics. We have different CYP pathways. We have different MTHFR pathways. We have different COMT pathways. You don't have to know all that. I'm just saying we're all different. And so taking CoQ10 actually helps those enzymes in your liver that make your cholesterol the good or the bad or the ugly. There's no ugly, but actually helps. Okay, so very important. TMG, trimethylglycerin, helps with, a lot of people think that having high blood pressure is a heart problem. It's a liver problem because all these things I just said, between the cholesterol and needing your estrogen to make your healthy cholesterol levels, it's an inflammation problem. Increased blood pressure is an inflammation problem. So TMG helps with that. Fish oil, I talked about that. Niacin, I talked about that. A low carbohydrate diet and exercise, because exercise, actually two different kinds of exercise. Dandelion tea. Yay, Carol. I love that. Dandelion tea helps clear the liver out from toxins too. So if you guys didn't know what dandelion tea was about. But exercise is like a dose of insulin. So like a diabetic who exercises can use less insulin. And strength training, building testosterone, taking the work off your liver to use cholesterol to make your sex steroid hormones like estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone can be very helpful too. And taking the work off of your liver from having to make your estrogen. And then if you have fatty liver or you're obese, and now you have the wrong kinds of estrogen and the wrong kinds of cholesterol at play, it's super critical that you get all that balance. So I am about out of voice. Do you guys have any questions? I never really stop long enough, and we do have a few minutes. So if you guys have questions, please put them in. And I'm just going to share with you what my passion project is. Checking your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone is so important. And doctors act like you're like you got two heads when you ask. The replay is actually already on. Oh, thanks, Don. The replay is actually already on my Facebook page, and it's Dr. Tammy, or Tammy Hill Tucker is my personal page. And it's on Instagram under Dr. Tammy Tucker, and it's also on LinkedIn and all the social media. So just look for Dr. Tammy Tucker, and they're all on instant replay right now. So you can go there and watch them, but they're also like recorded in perpetuity, and YouTube. So Dr. Tammy Tucker on YouTube as well. Hi, Tracy. um, yeah. So if you want to get your hormones checked, that's the next step. So get yourself a test kit, and you can go to my link in bio. And also, yay, Connie! I'm so glad you're feeling good on your cream. Yay! So we have a membership, and it basically is getting the test, getting you on your hormones. Oh, thank you, Constantina. Getting on hormones, get feeling better, and everybody's different. So our commitment to you is that we work with you and we get you balanced. So not everybody gets it right out of the gate, but I love it when people do. I love the testimonials. Link to schedule consult been fixed yet? I think it has. Oh, you're so welcome, Sharon. If you would email info@hormonebliss.com, we'll make sure that we get you taken care of. Do the test, see your numbers. It's amazing. Thank you, Connie. Yeah, so it's so valuable to have the information. And even if you don't, even if you're still scared, well, come watch me when I talk every night at 7. Well, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 now. But um, day 2 of my cream. Yay, Jan! I'm so glad. I'm so excited for you guys. It's just it's like I say, a big passion project. And before I leave this world, I would love to have 50% of women. Oh, they're telling me I gotta go. 50% of women at least knowing what their numbers are and at least knowing what their options are. And I'll just make the leap and say on the creams, right? So, but yeah, so go to the link in bio. I have lots of free information in my link in bio, and you can download my ebooks, and all of it's free. And we'll get your email again. I always say we won't sell your email or anything, but it puts you in our tribe. So if anything happens to this platform, which was a little scary, right? But I'm glad we're here day by day, right? And this is my favorite platform. I've never even really been on TikTok much, but I love it because my tribe, I found my tribe here. So I feel like I'm home. Bioidentical HRT. So yeah, so Kiki, I have lots of videos on bioidentical hormones. Oh, thanks, Lise. So bioidentical hormones are very different from synthetic hormones. Synthetic hormones are made from petrochemicals, and that's the reason doctors tell you you can't be on them more than 2 years because they have carcinogenic properties. And you've been lied to, and there's so much information out there. And please go watch my videos. Go to my main page. You can watch all of them. I've been doing YouTube videos for years. I have a local TV show, and so it's called The Naked Doctor, The Naked Truth About Health and Lifestyle. And I'm just here to tell the truth. And you guys have been misled, and there's so much more information. I think you can see from tonight that I'm not making this stuff up. Go look, do your research, because there's so much more to the story than just pharmaceuticals and just doctors who are rushing you through and seeing 60 patients a day. What is oxidil? I'm not sure. Emily, oxidil. I'm not sure. Um, but yeah, so you might have to ask me that again, Emily. I didn't see oxidized LDL. Okay, oxidized LDL is basically it's an inflammatory property. So the LDL is like I was talking about the little, like when you rub the little bread molecule, it's a very dense molecule. So oxidation is a stress of the enzymes that actually make those molecules. So when those enzymes are stressed, now you have inflammation in the molecule itself. And so LDL is actually a carrier protein for some of those lipoproteins, like a sac that's carrying those fats around in it. So when it's oxidized, it's almost like I think of it like when grease, like Crisco grease, starts to harden. It's like either a liquid or a grease. Um, Estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. I missed that question. It went by pretty fast because there were a couple questions there. You want to bring those back around? I got a couple more minutes. So anyway, so bioidentical hormones, I was talking about that. So bioidentical hormones are very different. They are exactly the same structure as your body. The study in 2002 that had everybody throw in their hormone therapy in the trash was based on petrochemical structures that are synthetic, that are patented, that actually came out from the Rockefellers in the early 2000s. And in the early 1900s, and they were having all that influence on the med schools, and they were just really promoting synthetic chemicals and medications. And to this day, any doctor who talks about this stuff is a quack, right? And so they actually, it's called the Flexner Report. I talked about that yesterday. And they actually started defunding any medical schools who aren't sticking by the big pharma narrative. And so doctors who actually do this stuff are considered like, off the beaten path. Like, and then we talk mainstream doctors. I call them commercial doctors, and I'm still a medical doctor. I'm just like, I am a question asker. I'm curious. I want to know the truth. And I don't believe that a headache is an aspirin deficiency. And I don't believe that a slightly elevated cholesterol level is a statin deficiency. So okay, I know I missed a question there a minute ago. I was hoping it would come back through, but I didn't see it. So anyway, so yeah, please go to my link in bio if you want to order a hormone kit. My team actually let me bring back the TikTok 20. So it takes $20 off the kit. It's $129 and it's normally a $300 kit. If you went to your doctor to get your levels checked, it could be $500 or $600 if you could even get your doctor to check. So it's just a little over $100 on the TikTok 20. Takes it down another $20. Connie says so worth it. Thank you for that plug there. Check your levels, free consult with one of our coaches, and we can talk to you about getting your hormones back on track, get you feeling better, get your lipid panel looking good, decreasing your risk of heart attacks and strokes, because that's what it's all about. And I love you guys so much too. And I want you to have a wonderful evening. And I see you back here tomorrow night. And again, I'm going to cut my days back a little bit to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I'll still be here Thursday and Friday of this week. And then next week we'll start back on Monday. And I will take a little break this weekend and hopefully rest my voice up a little bit. So, okay, love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.